Now then, so patch 10.6 has dropped now, and I kind of tweeted about this that I like quite a few of the changes. Erendite going up to 10 is kind of huge, and I was kind of surprised to see the new Triss and Yen cards, and I really like the look of them. And you will probably be able to tell from the decks that I like the ideas, and I think there's plenty of things you can try out. So yeah, if you've never watched one of my six faction six decks videos, the idea is these are sort of a deck for each faction that I'm planning to use. This is by no means a meta snapshot. It's kind of what on day one I'm like, right, these are stuff that's interested me, decks I already like, things I want to try out, that kind of thing. Putting them out there so people have sort of ideas after a new patch drops to go straight into games, have some decks to go with, and as I always kind of say, if you do take some of these decks, a lot of these I do kind of at the start of a patch, so unless I explicitly say like this deck hasn't changed, it's already good, you don't need to mess with it, I would definitely take it into games, and if you think no, you're wrong for using that card, make changes. Because these are early days, and I will no doubt be making changes too. Finally, in terms of each of these decks, if you sort of keep up to date with my videos, if you subscribe, that kind of thing, over the coming couple of weeks, I will end up doing a full video on each of these. So if there's one here you like the look of, maybe check back in about a week or so, and I'll probably have a couple of games, a bit more of a longer style description of like how to play it, that kind of thing. Uh, Also, final thing, I have very curly hair at the moment. I haven't had a perm or curl. I just had it in braids. I took it out and it's kind of ended up like this. So this is going on. Right, so we will go into the decks. To start off, as always, I don't know if people notice this, but I put them in alphabetical order. I'm very thingy about that. But we're starting with monsters. And this is a deck that when I saw the new yen, I was like, okay, we're doing this. I did want to squeeze the new Triss into this list, but didn't quite work. It was a little bit too expensive. It would have meant like Mamuna, which I really didn't want to do. So we're going yen instead. And the general idea here is we are spawning everything, and because monster units that get spawned are typically very, very tall, this should, in theory, work really well. So what we got going on is the usual kind of relics package kind of thing. We've got like griffins, megascopes, incubers, blah 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 blah. And because yen, if you haven't seen the new card, really interesting. What it does is when you spawn a unit, it will damage your opponent's lowest power unit by spawn unit's power. So if we're spawning things like 9 power griffins, we're spawning things like even just lesser witch, where it's spawning a 5. Um, Say if we use operator, we can nines. There's kind of plenty we can get done, including Idoran also makes sense, but the general idea here is there's just a lot of value to be had. Yen alone plays for like 12 on deploy, so she's already really good. Relics are already solid. Even if we can't get anything spawned in a turn, our leader ability is literally just a 1 point thing, like at least. So it's kind of great. And I expect this deck to do pretty well. Mainly because the core of it already was already really good. Like relics are already pretty decent. So it just kind of made sense to try it out with a new card. One of the cards in here where I was like, okay, let's see if this is even worth running. I've put in a natural selection because natural selection does actually spawn. If you like over damage something, it spawns the insectoids. I forget the name. But like 1 power drones. Drones, that's the word. So even if we have a turn where we can't really spawn anything, just natural selection and maybe get a 1 damage ping. 1 damage ping's a 1 damage ping. Turns natural selection into a 5 point piece of removal, which is it's good enough. Good enough. So thought I'd try it. Definitely one of the cards on the chopping block, but it was something to try out. Last thing I'm gonna say is something I've noticed in the sort of deck list things is for whatever reason, when you export them, megascopes are coming out as 5 provisions. Megascopes aren't 5 provisions at the moment; they're still 4 provisions. I don't know if this is something they've tried in development and didn't change back, but just bear that in mind. That megascopes haven't changed. It's just the deck builder stuff. Just trust me. All right, there's still 4 provisions. Now, next up for Nilfgaard is kind of something similar. But we've also managed to squeeze in a Triss as well. It sort of started off as being a more of a tactical decision kind of deck, like a super thin kind of deck, but I ended up just kind of swinging over to Imposter because Imposter does spawn a copy of your opponent's unit, and I kind of just ended up making something a little bit mid-rangey, running. So the general idea is we get some big spawns in the form of Nilfgaardian Knights, and the sort of end goal here, because we're running Operator, we can put a Nilfgaardian Knight in our opponent's graveyard. We can then Mushy Truffle later on to get several of our Nilfgaardian Knights out, and then a Triss onto them, boosts all of them up by 4. So if we can get Illusionist going, job's a good one. We've also, I mean, it's Nilfgaard, there's like a million ways to spawn things, so Yen just makes sense. And I'll see how this one goes, because, I mean, I knew they already had a lot of spawns, and the more I was looking, I was like, oh, goddamn, there actually is an actual ton of spawns. So even things like Blightmaker's spawn, for example, they spawn that 3-power Guardian. And obviously every single thing you copy with like Brathens and Informant counts as a spawn. Illusionist summons count as a spawn. You know, there's actually a ton of it. So this seems pretty good. And not to mention we have Yenver as well. So if our opponent is doing something similar, there's potential for a double Yen here. So that's in the back of the mind. So yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy this one, to be honest. It's a little clowny. I think there's definitely room for fine tuning, but this was kind of a first crack at it. I think this is kind of line you probably want to go with for Nilfgaard if you're trying out the whole Yen Triss big boy kind of thing. I think this kind of makes sense. No Idoran as well, by the way, because I just couldn't squeeze it in. Could maybe swap out Golgobed for him, but I thought Golgobed is a little more consistent. If we're not running Defender and we've not got a Purify, we're just very exposed, to be honest. So I thought this was kind of the best way to go with it. The NR is actually a bit of a good one for me. There was really nothing in NR that I kind of thought particularly interested me. Nothing where I was like, oh yeah, I kind of wouldn't mind trying this out. So I just ended up basically saying, if I do play any NR, I'll probably just play some Shield Wall. Because I think it's pretty fun, and I mean I do like running Queen Meave in there as well. It's a pretty fun deck, but I don't think there's too much to say about this one. This deck was pretty much roaming about last season, in varying iterations, but yeah, there's not a great deal I can say about NR. It is what it is. I honestly came up dry when it came to NR because obviously like Traveling Priestess is still good, Shield Wall's good, Siege is good, but there's not a great room for like creativity when it comes to Northern Realms, which is how I feel like in general about Northern Realms. Is why I kind of struggle to come up with anything interesting for Northern Realms. They're very like by the books, you know. The cards do what they say they do. There's not really any room for like interesting kind of stuff with them. But this isn't me complaining about NR. This is about the deck. So if you haven't played this one before, you've probably seen it about. But the general idea is everything gets shields. You can give stuff shields with your leader, with Wyvern Scale Shield. You're also going to use Griffin Witcher Adept to get a load of the, would you believe it, Witcher students and witch them over. So you end up with tons of stuff with shields. You then play Rogue, take all those shields off, get a lot of points. And it's a very solid deck because it's quite awkward for your opponent to deal with because there's a lot of things they need to deal with. You know, there's Vandergrift, there's Sirenova, there's Dandelion, there's Queen Meave, there's Keldar, there's Immortals, there's both the damn Sorceresses. Like, right there's 8 units that they realistically need to be removing, or they're going to be very strong engines, or give a lot of carryover. So this deck's very awkward. And obviously on top of that, everything has a shield. So, like, how do you even kill it? Like I say, it's a deck that's been floating around for a bit now. I personally enjoy playing it, but it's not super interesting, to be honest. So apologies, it's not often I come up short on one of these videos, but for now, we need something interesting, man. We need something interesting. So for Scoia'tael, we're back to an archetype that I have actually really missed playing. It's Nature's Gift. Like, I really enjoy playing Nature's Gift. It's so fun because it's just one of those decks you just sit back and let it do its thing. But I still wanted to try a few things, see how interesting I can make it. So we threw a Saskia in here. I think this is a decent game plan to go for, is sort of Saskia in round 1. Pull out things like Dwarf Mercenary, Cat Witchers, Abandoned Girls, Scribes, Sorcerers, Hammer Dryads, you know, whatever you want. And then going into round 3, you've got that 10 power Symbiosis 3 immune Ethne, which is kind of nuts. And a ton of Symbiosis stuff. And Phyrexian is very, very interesting. Phyrexian can get very, very dumb. So if you haven't seen what they did with Phyrexian, he has been basically completely reworked. He has the order to spawn a young Dryad, and it has 4 cooldown. But if you have Diversion, its cooldown also goes down by the duration of Vitality on it. So if you throw a Shaping Nature on Phyrexian, for example, you can spawn a young Dryad every turn. And young Dryads also have Symbiosis. So this will get very stupid very, very quickly. Like, incredibly quickly. If this isn't answered, only hard removal is going to deal with it because we've got double Dryad's Caress. Like, we can just keep this alive, basically. And then, say, even if he spawns like 2, let's say he spawns 2 young Dryads, and you've also got Ethne, and you've also got Leader. There's 2, 5, like 6 Symbiosis. So every single nature card is going to be playing for an extra 6 points, which is kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts, to be honest. So this just seems, I don't think broken. I don't think this is a broken card, but it seems very, very good. There's obviously a couple of awkward things in here because Saskia's conditions are brutal. You have 10 different like primary tags. Because we're going Diversion, that becomes a very difficult task. So that's why we have Stiga Castle in there, where we have Pitfall Trap. We just need those last little tags to make it all up. But, you know, we'll see how it'll do. If Saskia isn't working out, I'll probably just strip out that entire like package. So like the Abandoned Girls, the Mercenaries, Stiga Castle, all that. And then just go like a solid hard line. Nature's Gift, you know, throw in more Nature's Rebukes, put in Whisperers of Dolbothana, that kind of thing, and just go that kind of angle. Also, probably put a Gezrus in there, or a Great Oak, but I saw this as okay, this is how we win round 1, and we can just kind of chill at that point. So it was pretty fun. I mean, as I say, I do enjoy a bit of Nature's Gift. It's a very relaxing deck, you know, something you can sit back on just like a Friday night and turn your brain off and just get some solid wins with. So I, for one, hope this deck is back. So Skellige is probably my most clowny list I've come up with. We got both Yen and Triss, and this is just going to be such a clown fiesta. So you're going to have to stick with me on this. So we already have like naturally high base power because we have Tier Siege veterans, Lil Havrus, we have Henkadooch to get Bear Witches. We're also going to Megascope to get several veterans or, whatever you want. Now, with veterans, the way they work with Idoran is because Megascope spawns the unit, we can then play Idoran, which will then spawn a 1 power version of a Tier Siege veteran. But Tier Siege veteran, when it's below 3 power, boosts itself back up to 8. So Idoran just spawns an 8. And we then can Triss to boost all of that up by like 4 each. Yen obviously makes sense if we're spawning 8 power units. Completely makes sense to run Yen. And then we have the true clowny part of it, which is Patricide Fury. So what we're doing with Patricide Fury, that's a spawn as well. We're spawning an 11 power unit. Makes sense for Yen. It's 11 power, makes sense for Triss. Triss is going to boost it up by like 5 or 6. I don't know if it rounds up or rounds down. And Idoran will also spawn as a 1 power version. And we also have Restore. So Restore becomes a 20-point card onto Arnor, because if he's 1 power but he has a base power of 11, then Restore is going to heal it by 10 and then boost it by 10. So yeah, there's a lot of clowny stuff going on. It kind of made sense to run a lot of this stuff. Also, Magic Compass, I'm just triple checking on this one, but it should work like this because it spawns a legendary, and that just works for Yen. Because whatever we spawn, so let's say we spawn a Fukusha, then that's another spawn, isn't it? That was my logic there anyway. So we have the discard package to pretty much ensure that we get to that point. We have like Roach, Knickers, all the discard, a Royal Decree, so we can just cycle through nice and fast. Magic Compass will work. Job is a good one. As I say, this one seems clowny. It probably is very clowny, but I think it's going to be the most fun out of them all, in all honesty. Now, for Syndicate to round us out, I honestly did not even know where to begin with the sort of poison archetype. It was something I wanted to try. I think there's a million and one ways you could go with this. You could go for like a Salamander, that kind of Exodia, wipe out the full board kind of angle. But I'm a little pussy, so I went for a more like mid-rangey jackpot kind of style. I wanted to try out new Fallen Railer, wanted to try out new mutants. There's been a lot of change to the poison cards, and because we don't typically want that many spenders, jackpot kind of made sense to play Roland, let Roland get stupidly tall. Also threw in a Bincy, because if we're getting coins all the time, let's see if she's any good. And then usual jackpot stuff of things like Caesar and Siggy and Professor and Horson Jr., Vivaldi's Bank, Redanian, all the usual kind of stuff. And I think I'll just have to see with this one. I think this is probably the deck where it's going to take me a good 20, 30 games before I'm a lot more confident of how the final list should look. It's a very weird one. Very, very weird one, but I think it's got potential. It's got potential because poison outside of Syndicate really isn't a thing anymore. Goetel don't use poison anymore. It is very rare you're going to come across a sort of status Nilfgaard. They've kind of moved away from that aristocrat masquerade ball kind of list. So they're not really using poison for removal anymore. It's only really Syndicate who poison as well. So a mirror match would be very, very awkward. But I think it's going to be interesting. Very interesting. And that's it. That's it for the lists. I kind of said already at the start, but I do genuinely like this patch. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff they've added, and by and large, I pretty much agree with all of the changes. The Erendite change to 10 was basically all I was looking for. Just make sure it can't be used in Golden Necker decks. I think Erendite as a card has been spoken about enough. We don't need another voice in. All I can really say is I agree with what people have been saying. I don't mean the sort of people just saying it's broken, it's overpowered, it needs removing. More the more analytical views people have been giving. So Pajabal talked about it a little bit. I kind of agree with that it's a coin flip card that promotes a way of playing that just isn't particularly healthy. So yeah, I'm glad to see it not be playable in Golden Necker anymore. I think as a card, sure, have it playable, but not be an auto-include in what is already an amazing archetype. But this video isn't about complaining, right? This video is not about complaining. We got a fresh little patch, and there's absolutely tons to try here. So I'm gonna wrap up recording because I want to go try out these decks myself. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one.